Let's bring in CNN space analyst and PBS science correspondent Miles O'Brien. Miles, good to see you. The obvious curiosity here is in why this happened, but the reason it matters goes beyond this one event, right? NASA's had problems before with things that they've designed. They've had catastrophic problems. But this really goes to the question of who should be making the rockets, right? And do you believe that this offers any insight into that?
Well, you know, a few generations ago, Chris, we called it a missile gap. There is a bit of a dearth of U.S. capability in this sector, if you will. Chemical rockets that can take vehicles of this size to space, by and large, are coming from Russia these days. In the mid-'90s, a decision was made in Congress and by the administration at the time to purchase a lot of Russian rocket engines because there was some concern that Russian rocket scientists would sell their wares to North Korea, let's say. And so the commercial space industry became very reliant mostly on this RD-180 engine.
Isn't that an old engine?
A larger engine. And that has put the commercial sector here in a bind.
Isn't that an older engine? Is that part of the calculus here in terms of what's going on, even though we always think innovation when we think space, in fact, that there is a lot of older technology still at play?
There's always a trade-off between the amount you want to put into research and development and the actual cost, and this was an effort on the part of NASA to try to foster a commercial enterprise in low Earth orbit. And so a decision was made by the company involved in this case, Orbital Sciences, not to invest maybe $500 million in the development of a new engine, instead to purchase these 40-old engines that sat in a warehouse for a long time, refurbish them with the use of company Aerojet as part of that. And so there was money saved doing that, clearly, but sometimes maybe you got to do the groundwork and do the R&D to get something that's safe and reliable.
Help me understand it, Miles, because for me, space is always about the new frontier and pushing the limits and expressly about research and development. It's not like they have to keep the trains on time up there, you know, and they have to make sacrifices. Did we make a bad call here going towards private industry? You know, should we still be in the space game? Was this a mistake?
Well, I think it's a good idea for NASA to be looking beyond low Earth orbit. That's the big picture here is NASA shouldn't be spending its time and resources essentially driving trucks to the International Space Station or low Earth orbit. They should be thinking about going to Mars. That's what we pay NASA to do at this point. Mm-hmm. After all these years of going to low Earth orbit, it's time that we figured out a way for the private sector to do this more autonomously. But it's tricky getting from point A to point B, and this is what we're seeing right now. There's going to be some missteps along the way as this is forged. You look at what has happened with SpaceX, the California-based company run by Elon Musk. They built their own rockets there, and so far they've been successful. So it can be done.
But, you know, it's kind of sad in a way, Miles. You know, space was started as an initiative to push human potentiality and, you know, see what else was out there. Now it just seems like it's being done low budget. Let's get to what the good news is in this situation. People are worried about the astronauts up in the space station. They're okay. They have provisions, right?
Yeah, they're fine. Even if we couldn't get a freighter to them until March, they would be fine. And we just had one arrive from Russia safely just yesterday. And we've got 2 SpaceX launches coming up in December and February. They'll be fine.
Who knows? Maybe all this, the new kerfuffle between the U.S. and Russia will make them rethink how much they do at home. Miles O'Brien, thank you very much. When we find out more, we'll come back to you. Allison?